a scathing new report out about President Biden's age and how it's becoming a serious concern. And you won't believe where this report is from. They say he's a liability for the White House and the Democrat Party, you think? So it's the New York Times. They are reporting that the White House aides are closely looking out for Biden, with some staffers pointing out his verbal and physical stumbles, that they've become a, quote, uncomfortable issue. The Times writing this: he often shuffles when he walks, and aides worry he will trip on a wire. He stumbles over words during public events, and they hold their breath to see if he makes it to the end without a gaffe. I think America holds their breath, too. His speeches can be flat and listless. He sometimes loses his train of thought, has trouble summoning names, or appears momentarily confused. More than once, he has promoted Vice President Kamala Harris, calling her President Harris. Gosh, help us. Adding insult to injury, more than 60% of Democrats do not want Biden as the party's nominee in 2024. What's so troubling to me, Brian, if you read the start of this New York Times piece, is that these questions about his age and his acuity are actually affecting his official plans as president. The Times piece starts by saying when Biden leaves Tuesday night for a 4-day swing through the Middle East, he will presumably be more rested than he would have been had he followed the original plan. They go on to say the original plan was for the Middle East trip to be tacked onto the European trip, but his aides called it, quote, crazy, that's what one official said, to put Biden through that at the age of 79 years old. When it affects your official duties and your ability to go on a 10-day international trip, that says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people should watch this and say, well, this is a Republican-Democratic issue. Or nor should people say, wow, they're not being nice to someone who's in his late 70s and will be 83 by the time they run for election again. They just should think about the country. And you have to be able to do your job effectively. And for him to take off every single weekend, they say on average he only works 5 days a week and he doesn't do anything at night. How is that effective for the country? But I also think it's important, too, to get ageism out of this and not insult anyone watching at home, because that's the last thing we want to do. They say 60% of the Harris study, 60% of those 65 and up also think he's too old. So for those 65 and up, and what I think also was pointed out in the book is David Gergen says, I'm 80. And David Gergen worked for Republicans and Democrats and says, I can't run anything anymore. I notice a decline. And you should not be president and be 80, nor should you be seeking re-election at 80. Maybe it's a tactic, but I sense that he absolutely wants to run again for another 4 years.
I think you make a really important point, because our elders are the wisest among us and oftentimes can make the best decisions. But in this case, it's when it's affecting the job performance on an international trip. And to your point, they talk about in the New York Times, Harris, how they safely guard his Delaware trips that aides do. They want him to have those weekends. And that he is, as you point out, a 5-day-a-week president. We need a 7-day-a-week president.
Absolutely.
We need someone around the clock.
So I guess he's not going to take that 3 a.m. call that Hillary Clinton was always talking about.
It's going to get voicemail.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
right. If that. I don't know. Maybe
the president's sleeping right now.
So they don't wake him up. You know, for Joe Biden, though, it's not the octogenarian number that he hits this fall that worries me. It's the 83 January 20th of 2025 should he win re-election.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, you're starting to get into a zone there where you can start to believe some of the reports where the aides are being told, not just on foreign trips, but when he goes home to Delaware, just keep a good eye on him. What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Right? We don't know. But with this, the calculation, and of course we took him live last hour on the Faulkner Focus, and you're watching him talk about guns, and the calculation of him being able to handle lots of detail about the new bipartisan legislation. I had so many questions. He doesn't take any, though.
None.
So I would have asked, you know, Adam Lanza's guns weren't just lying around his house. His mom purchased those. This was not the situation that he described, was not how it actually broke out. But we're not allowed to ask him anything, and they just put enough words in the prompter for him to get through it. Look, it's what we're watching. It's not our opinion. These are the facts, and the facts don't have feelings.
Yeah. No, and the facts are the most devastating I've seen. And when you look at the New York Times Siena poll, 13% believe the country's going in the right direction. 33% approval to Biden. That's the lowest that I've seen it. Not just in this New York Times poll, but more broadly. 64% of Democrats say he shouldn't run, and half cite age as the reason.
That's right. And Kaylee, as you touched on in the beginning, as Peter Baker pointed out in that article, it's the president's public appearances that have fueled that perception, right? And he touches on the clear confusion and the gaffes, the things that have real implementation, real policy affect for us, that then the press secretary and the White House administration has to clean up. That's a lot that we're seeing. This isn't just a stumble on a stair that happens to all of us. This is a considerable barrage of information to us, perception to us, that he can't handle it. And I think that the question, frankly, isn't whether he has or can sustain that mental acuity, the mental capacity, because frankly, I think we all know the answer to that. And yes, it has nothing to do with his age. I think the question is, why is the mainstream media now releasing this onslaught of articles and points about this now? Why now? Why is there such a surge? Who does it benefit? And now reports are that there are sharks circling the chum, right? Citing Representative Ro Khanna and Governor Pritzker, who have gone to New Hampshire all of a sudden. Of course, the vice president. So I think
Gavin Newsom.
There you go.
Right.
And so the question is always, who is being benefited by these stories right now that are all of a sudden taking A1 space?
Yeah, reports of where that birthday falls for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
She will be eligible.
Exactly.
And she was in
Betsy.
some of that chum that you were talking about. She was mentioned along with J.B. Pritzker. And,
Yeah, when you look at these sharks in the water, perhaps the biggest is the Vice President, Kamala Harris. To her credit, she at least does press interviews. You know, she walks up to the plate, she swings, but she misses royally. Watch this last one.
I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. Certain issues are just settled. There is a connection between what we want to have happen and the power of Congress to actually make it happen when it comes to changing the laws, when it comes to writing and then putting in effect laws.
Another run by former President Trump is possible. He is signaling that. Would that make it more likely that the president runs?
He did it before.
Oh, there's that laughter again that we've all come to love and feel so, warmed by. Look, let's not be science deniers, okay? So when you reach a certain age, your chances of having a baby dwindle because age affects your ability. And I'm speaking of one who went.
You're speaking as a birthing person.
I'm speaking as a birthing person who had trouble conceiving because I waited so long.
Same.
Okay, so when you get to be a certain age, your cognitive abilities begin to decline, although Kamala looks ahead of schedule. But, your cognitive abilities start to decline, and that's just how it is. I'm not sure that, we should set a number and have a number. You have to be a certain age in order to run.
Right.
Do you cap it? Because I think there are some really wise people who are 80 and older. The wisdom is one thing. The ability to do the job is something completely different. I think both of my parents, my mom is now 91, incredibly wise woman, and gives me advice all the time. Would she be able to? No, she can't run for president, and granted, that's 91. But I think that we need to accept that with age comes this decline, no matter how much Prevagen you take, right? It's just, you're just not up to it. And like you said, he proves it all the time. He's saying he's going to run because he doesn't want to be a lame duck for the rest of his term.
But I think he thinks he's running because he says he gets so angry
No doubt.
when people bring up his age that, of course, I'm going to run again.
No doubt he thinks he's
biking
running.
until he fell over a non-moving bike.
Okay.
It's so sad.
Very good retort.
Those images
And I
make me
agree with
sad.
you. It's not the age of 83 when he would take office again if he were to win re-election. It is what you talked about. We miss out on his wisdom, whatever that would look like at this point, because he's got to concentrate on just walking.
Yeah.
That's right. And when you've lost the far left, you've lost independents, you've lost everyone, even Hollywood. They have to hold conference calls with them, like Deborah Messing. And Emily, he's even lost Snoop Dogg. Snoop
Don't say
Dogg,
that.
He's lost he's lost Snoop, who loved Hillary. Snoop Dogg has this out. I guess it's cannabis. Sleepy Joe OG. You won't even remember what country you're in. Where am I? When you've lost Snoop.
When you've lost Snoop, the writing is on the
All is
wall.
lost. All is lost.
Grab a Corona and sit back, Joe.
Grab a Corona and sit back, Joe. Yikes.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.